approached building contractor compliance differently than most Canadian startups, I'd argue. There's this dream of you have a great idea and you're going to raise a bunch of money and you're going to hire a bunch of people and you're going to be this big 1,000-person behemoth success story. Our dream was autonomy. So we approached contractor compliance with the goal of not raising a dime. So I had spent, after graduating school, I had spent damn near 8 years at the same organization, a company called Career Builder. I started off as an entry-level sales guy, worked my way up to sales leader, country manager for Canada, went down to the US to do a stint in California and help them grow into a new emerging market. So 8 years, but I'd argue in 8 years it was probably more like a dozen different responsibilities or jobs. Life happens. I ended up getting engaged, and my wife and I got married. We're both from Toronto. I actually met her at Career Builder. So I ended up moving back and joining a startup. I joined as a VP of sales. It was a pre-revenue, early stage, not yet funded organization. I was the first domestic hire. Our founder had a team overseas in Croatia of developers who were helping build what was a really sophisticated product at the time. That was really my first opportunity to see a startup from the inside and really understand how it works. Fell in love with a lot of it. Obviously learned a lot as well. And without going kind of too deep into this being a sob story, but I feel like, you know, you have to be a little fucked up to want to start your own startup. I don't have a filter, so I'm just going to say it that way. But there's got to be something a little wrong. And maybe wrong's the choice of words, but like definitely outside the norm. And in my case, I was at this startup Upchain for knocking on the door of a year. We had raised a really significant Series A. We were getting just monster logos adopting our platform, companies like Disney, companies like Magna, and life happened. My dad died of a heart attack coming home from work. He was 66, super healthy dude. Worked at the post office as a mail sorter. Parked the car on the driveway and didn't make it to the front door. A week before that, to the day, my co-founder, Jeremy, lost his father quite unexpectedly as well. So Jeremy and I had a relationship. We had worked together actually at Career Builder probably 7, 8, 9 years before then. So we had always kind of talked, but we ended up having more meaningful conversations when both of us were hit with what the fuck just happened. 2 weeks later, my mom was diagnosed with stage 4 brain cancer. And then we lost her 2 months after that. So you talk about like life happening fast, like that was fucked up. So why did we start contractor compliance? Well, Jeremy was the visionary behind it. He had the idea. And it was a great idea. And it was always this kind of, do we feel like there's meat on this bone? Like, is this something that we can really go do? And for kind of both of us, the family loss was the catalyst to say, what the fuck are we waiting for? Like, is their passing gonna be for nothing? Or are we gonna use that as a springboard for something to kind of keep their memory alive? And that's what it was for us. It was honestly this big, like, what the fuck are you waiting for moment? Life is short. You got something, you want to give it a swing, go for it. And that's when both of us just kind of walked away from what we were doing and divested and went fully in on, can we turn this contractor compliance concept into something significant? And fortunately, we did.
Okay, yeah, same. I've always loved food. From like very young age, I would be making my own meals and stuff like that. And the first thing I ever learned to cook was a grilled cheese sandwich. I feel like every food is an adventure on its own. I've always been like adventurous, one of those kids that was just always outside, always doing away, right? Like always going out and doing stuff. And so food was a part of that for me. So, and then I remember when I moved back to England when I was like 16, there was like a sort of a renaissance I guess a bit of a renaissance of like cooking programs. And I remember watching these cooking programs. One of them was called Ready, Steady, Cook. And where they would just have like, it was a black box challenge thing every show. There was like 2 chefs and they would just get like a member of the audience would just bring a bag of food and give them to figure out something to cook, right? And I was just so amazed by what they could do in such quick time and all these different techniques. And they would make mayonnaise, and I was like, well, what's in mayonnaise? I have to learn. So I wanted to go to cooking school to learn how to make mayonnaise. So when I was like at that age, I was like 16 when I went back there, and I was given this ultimatum of like, hey, do you go back to school or do you want to go get a job? And I was like, I'm going to get a job. And I went out and I got a job in the kitchen because I wanted to learn how to cook. And I think that I went and I tried other career paths along the way. I went and did like construction for a little bit, and I did some sales stuff for a little bit. And all that was like fun, and it was interesting, but I kept finding myself back in the kitchen. So I just eventually kind of accepted the fact that I was supposed to be a chef.
So my family, we had like a gyoza is a dumpling, so gyoza night. Like every time, like I host like my friends like a party, and I made a gyoza, and everybody really loved it. So kind of when I kept doing it, kind of I started to wonder, what if I open gyoza shop? Is it gonna be successful? People gonna be so loving like my gyoza, or my friends just saying because they are my friends, right? So that was I always had that idea, but yeah.
She always forgets to mention that her first job was actually at a ramen shop. Right? So when she was like, what, you were 15 or 16 at the time when you first worked there?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the seed was planted very early that she was going to become a ramen chef. But yeah,
yes,
it just
by universe.
Yeah.
I learned, all the hardships what you need to do, even as a part-timer at the work from them, because I was fired at the end because I never told anybody. Because
there you go.
So one day I was late for work. That was really purely innocent. But, my club, I missed my train. I could kind of hang out with my friends a little bit. So I kept doing that. Then I got fired because he now knew I was, I did that on purpose. But so I really learned hard way that what expectation needed to be. But one day he asked me, okay, Miki, what do you want to do when you grew up? Then I didn't know what I wanted to do at the time, but one thing I knew for sure was I didn't want to work at the ramen shop.
Why don't we start with what inspired us to start the company? ChatGPT launched in November, and as soon as it launched, I remember I typed in a question and then I called him, because the fact that it wasn't even a good answer, but the fact that it did it blew my mind, and I knew it was going to change the world. Fast forward a few months, I meet a lady who has breast cancer, and she wrote a book about it. And if you get to know me at all, I ask really weird questions. So I said, well, why did you write this book? And she said, well, I want to be a girlfriend's companion. I said, well, that makes sense. Shared lived experience, kind of understanding someone who's walked in your shoes. But I said, isn't that what Facebook groups are for? And she answered me so honestly that I think if you've not been a patient, you wouldn't think this way, is where you are on your journey is unlikely to be where that group is. So that group is not moderated. So it can be anger echo chamber, it can be very sad. And so what you need in that moment may not be what that group is actually capable of giving you. And quite frankly, sometimes it's worse. Like if you think about it, if you're not ready to hear that people have passed away and they're mourning somebody in that group, like think of the mental challenge that can exist there. So I remember saying, hey, I have an idea. If you send me your book, your manuscript, I have kind of a concept, but it has to be free for everybody forever. And if that's true, I'll put my network behind this and I'll start hacking it together. So she agreed. And then as we started building it, I got Ryan involved, and Chris, who's not in the video, but is also a key part of the Gambit. He's really the brains behind it, started to get involved. And that became Ask Ellen, which is now a tool that's been used in over 100 countries in 65 different languages. That really put us on the map because we were looking for a use case that made sense with AI, because everybody's chasing adding AI into anything, but they don't really know why they're doing it. There's no outcomes. It's just demos and technologies for the sake of demos and technologies. There's no real outcomes being measured. For us, it was support. It was 24/7. You could have support on the non-medical side, so the human side, like how do I tell my kids? How do I go back to work? Will my hair grow back? What do I bring to chemo? Like these real human being questions that are not answered properly today is what we wanted to solve for. And so at the event, we had a lawyer come up to us and said, so AI is going to change law. I want to be part of this. How much you guys want? Like, how much does this cost? I don't know. We don't have a company like that. We just did this because we thought it mattered and should exist. And so we told him a price that covered our salaries, and he agreed. And that's how Gambit got started.
Day one was absolute chaos, to be honest with you. I think we had no idea what we were getting ourselves into. We tried to do like a quiet opening on Valentine's Day, not telling anybody we were opening. The theory being that everybody would always already have plans. So when we opened up, nobody would be here.
Yes, it would be great for soft opening, a kind of.
Yes, exactly.
But
right?
then it turned out like there was a big lineup, and
yeah, it was insane. Like literally a lineup around the block. Which meant that we were very underprepared. I think we had my stepmom was washing dishes.
Yes.
You were working the till. It was me and Drew, who was like my sous chef.
Yes.
And we lasted like 3 hours. Literally ran out of food in 3 hours. So we had to close down that after 3 hours. And then the next day we manically prepped for the rest of the day. Opened up the next day again. I think we lasted 4 hours. And then we said, okay, stop. We got to stop this. We told everybody. We went on social media and said, hey, look we're going to be shut down for a few days while we figure this out. Mm-hmm. And we reached out to anybody that had sent us resumes, because we didn't think we would need anybody. We thought it was going to be a mom and pop shop.
Yeah, we were aiming to do 100 bowls a day. That would kind of, keep us self-sufficient, like a bare minimum level. Mm-hmm. So it was very surprising to see the big lineup. Customers were waiting for us to open the shop.
Everywhere that I've been super fortunate in my career to have great leaders, to have tremendous opportunities to learn, tremendous opportunities to advance my career. Like I had people who just truly gave a shit about my personal and professional future. And I'm not to take away from anywhere that I've been. Everywhere, there's always that one little thing where you go, fuck, if I was calling the shots, I do this one little thing differently here. I do this one little thing differently there. And what I genuinely gave a shit about was that every single person who worked at our organization enjoyed what they did day in, day out, left our organization better personally and professionally than how they entered it. And the last thing, all these companies that are raising, you raise your Series A, you raise your Series B, you raise your Series C, you see just as many articles about this company that raised just went through a round of layoffs, and there's volatility and shit happens in the market that ends up making you pivot. Rather than saying, let's go raise some money, let's go hire a bunch of people, let's pray that our theory was right, and if we were wrong, jobs are on the line, we decided to take a different approach and say, yeah, let's test our theory, let's go do all these things, but fuck, we want that resource, let's go out and earn that resource. Right? It's not a handout, right? We're not gonna go out there and say, give us this money, because if we're wrong, fuck. In our case, it's, well, if we're wrong, fuck, we can't hire that new person, so we've just gotta go back to the drawing board and figure it out, but jobs aren't gonna be on the line. And that might not be the best way to do it, that might not be the right way to do it, it's also not the wrong way to do it, but for better or for worse, that was our goal. Which made day one through day N pressure packed.
I have this belief that you start a business because you actually don't want a boss, but a lot of people raise money and then they get tons of bosses. And I don't understand why they want more bosses. I know why you have to raise money, but a lot of times I think a lot of times we raise money not because we need money, but because that's the pattern that we've been told. You got to go raise money. And through a part of it is people have lost their ability to be resourceful in terms of how to generate money. It's just been so easy to go the pathway of, I need this amount of money, therefore I'm going to go get this money, versus I need this amount of money, therefore I'm going to figure out ways to generate that money, which, by the way, you can bootstrap. And I think part of the reason they don't is it takes an immense amount of personal sacrifice. It's an incredible amount. It's an incredible amount because you have to take a step back in your standard of living at some point for it to pay off into the future, right? Or you've had to set yourself up at a certain point that you can have delayed gratification. So it's very difficult to do. But in those early days, you're watching every dollar and you're making sure that that dollar is being used effectively. But we both wanted it because I think we're both very independent people. And you had an experience with a board. I've never had to deal with a board. I've already bootstrapped a company. I didn't want to have that experience. And I'm sure part of you is you've gone through that experience. You wanted to try something else. So we were decided to be bootstrapped from day one. And I'll let you hop in quickly. But I think part of it also is that we didn't grow up with like a lot. Like we both come from places where like our whole lives were bootstrapped. Like, you know what I mean? Like your whole lives, I'm not saying I had a tough life, but you had to make stuff out of nothing. And when you learn how to make something out of nothing, you realize that you can make things with nothing and you get really good at that. And I think that's a bit of a lost art where people do not know how to generate opportunity from nothing. They think about the idea and then they go to that person and say, I need the money to generate it. And obviously part of it is to scale and move fast. We just never had that intention in our company. And I'm glad we went down that path.
The idea of making a ramen kit came from COVID, right? Because we were literally, we had a restaurant, it had been open for 4 months, and our dining room was shut down, and we were like, how are we going to pay the rent, right? Simple as that. And we were like, okay, well, people are making, pizza kits, and they're making burger kits, and Khalil was like, hey, why don't we make a ramen kit, right? I'm like, yeah, we can do that. And we literally just started taking all the ingredients that we put in our bowl, putting them in little, cups and containers, we bought some boxes and stuck them in the boxes and put a label on it and started selling them through social media.
And also like a ramen kit, like fresh as well as frozen, like this style is in Japan, it's there.
Yeah.
So
true. Yeah. You would literally the ramen kit idea as well. So whenever you travel through Japan, every area that you go to, there's there's petrol stations or gas stations or but they're also tourist stations, and you'll go in them and they'll just be full of local type snacks and treats and stuff like that. So you would vegetables, whatever it is, but like cookies, whatever the local delicacy is, that's what they'll be selling at these sort of tourist stations, right? So you would go there and you could buy ramen kits there as well. And just like in general, the ramen in Japan, like the instant ramen, it's not like it is here. Instant ramen in Canada is like a packet of fried noodles and some powder. Instant ramen in Japan, it's like you open it up and you've got dehydrated piece of chashu, and you got memma, and you got corn, and you got oil, and the tale is like a liquid. It's like it's a complete bowl, right? You don't get that in North America at all, right? No. So we knew that instant ramen could be great. We were sort of funneled into it through COVID and having to pivot into figuring out what we could do with this big dining room.
At the time, kind of when we sold, it just sold out within really 5 minutes. So there was no risk there because it's always a sell. But when this became bigger and bigger, and we started expanded, more and more, then I started seeing, is this gonna be,
there's definitely been more. It's become more and more risky along the way. We definitely had to double down on our vision and our commitment to it, because entrepreneurship is risky. Launching any new product is risky. So I think that when we first did it, it was not seen as being risky. It was more of a lifeline to help us. But But in order to, once we saw that people wanted it, in order to get it to where it is now, it's been many, many risks along the way. And certainly like, as founders and business partners and stuff and investors, and we've all had to double down on our commitment to our vision on this many times.
Not every dollar is the same. And that's really important. When you're running a bootstrapped organization, you need that next dollar to make payroll, to hire that next person, to get a little bit of your time back because you're working 18 different jobs. At the same time, when you're working at that funded startup, you need that next dollar to appease your financial sponsors and make sure that you're meeting those milestones and make sure that you're able to retain the people you've hired without having layoffs or things of that nature. But not every dollar is equal. And there are shitty dollars to go get if you're not strategic or patient enough. The thing that I would stress for every founder, and quite frankly, everyone in a revenue generating role at a startup, is get the dollars that will continue to be dollars. Focus on the renewal more than the initial sale. If you're going to put a lot of effort into a deal, if you're going to put a lot of effort into acquiring a new customer, servicing that customer, and it doesn't seem like it's the right fit, you can say that to the customer and internally to the organization. Like, is this really where we should be spending our time? Man, it's great that we can get this customer that's going to land X number of dollars, but is it actually what we're trying to do? And a lot of organizations fail or take steps back or don't realize their full potential as well as they should by simply being distracted, trying to get that next buck, trying to get it fast and not focusing too much on getting the right buck. So that's something that was incredibly important for us at Contractor Compliance, and fortunately something that I'll say everyone within the organization did a damn good job of.
So we had the hallucination problem in AI, which is it just made things up. So we had to solve that. But the bigger one was, how did it give an answer no matter what the user said? And this is when I remember I was sitting with the CTO at Lenovo, and he said, well, how long did it take you to fine tune this? And fine tuning the process is showing like thousands and thousands of examples of question and answers. And I said, well, we didn't fine tune. He said, well, what do you mean? I said, well, we can't afford it. We're bootstrapped. Like, but I don't have millions of dollars for this. And that's when I realized there was patent style things we had done here. Because of the constraint of lack of resources, we had to be clever. We had to outthink what everybody else was doing because everyone was fine tuning models. And luckily we didn't do that. We focused on, instead of focusing, like an engineer would approach this on, if the user says this, then what do we do, right? But that's a rabbit hole because anybody can say anything. So how are you going to do that? How we chose to go about it is, no matter what the user says, how do we provide a dignified answer? You can wrap your arms around that because that's, you can actually conceive that. And so by doing that and some clever tricking we did on the back end, we weren't injectable. Like, so far, no one's been able to actually crack it. Like, you were at a conference where a strategist for the FBI tried to break it and couldn't. Like, it was hilarious. Like, he literally tried to break it for an hour and a bit, couldn't. And it's because of how we architected it. But that's the magic and the difference of when you work with a company who's actually done something. There's a lot of gotchas that, like, 2 weeks before the Ask Ellen launch, I got to ask Ellen, I won't repeat it on here, but I got to ask Ellen to do something that still haunts me to this day. And that was 2 weeks before the event, and we had 2 weeks to figure out how we were going to solve that. So it was a lot of sleepless nights and scary kind of moments because, again, I knew people were trying to break it because it just was the perfect tool to try to break. And yeah, luckily nobody's been able to do it so far, which is great. And we apply that same principle to all the other tools that we do. So we always, again, personalities that drive outcomes, but from a safety perspective or a corporate branding perspective, there's a lot of work that goes into making sure that it doesn't break.
Hello everyone. So when I met Jared and Miki as a regular here at Crafty Ramen, I just fell in love with the brand and the food and them as people. I have something that I call perfect hospitality. So it's the feeling that you get, and you can get it at a 3-star Michelin restaurant. You can also get it when you're having that sausage on a beautiful Sunday before the Blue Jays game, or traveling and you're eating empanadas on the side of the street in Colombia. It's the feeling of good food, good vibes, and good people all coming together at once. And it's agnostic of price. And that's how I felt when I ate here at Crafty Ramen and was eating really good food in a cool environment with great people and nice branding. So it was that feeling that made me want to approach them and talk about partnering up together. I would say some of the biggest challenges were just opening the Kitchener restaurant. It's really difficult to open a restaurant from an empty box. So everything from permitting and fire and hoods, there was a lot of challenges along the way there. And then obviously COVID happened, and that was a challenge. And then when we were starting to get our e-commerce website up and running, we actually hired somebody to build the website for us. And about halfway through, they just sent us a note and said, hey, I can't take this over the finish line. Good luck, here's half your money back. And then Jared was like, hey, my brother knows software engineering, maybe he can help us out. So we brought Vanden on the team, and he was amazing, got the website over the finish line, built all the things we needed to build to ship frozen food. Because when you buy a t-shirt on a website, it's not perishable. So if it comes on Wednesday or Thursday, it doesn't really matter. But when you're buying food online, you need to be home to receive it and get it in your fridge or freezer. So we had to build some really complex back-end systems so that we could pick a date and make sure that food got to you on that date. And then Vanden said to us, hey, guess what? I'm going to school in a few months. You're going to need to replace me. We're like, oh my God. So we started to talk to tech recruiters and try to figure out how do we replace Vanden. And we quickly found that finding somebody with his experience for the wage we were paying him wasn't going to be possible. So we actually convinced Vanden to drop out of school and come join us. And because I said, hey, you're going to learn way more building this thing from scratch and learning by doing than you will in school. And Vanden had a baby on the way. So we're like, probably better to make money than spend money in school.
I'm still surprised.
And so now he's one of the most important people in our business, and he's continued to evolve and grow his role with us. But there's so many stories of pain and challenges along the way that we just had to figure out a way through.
A lot of our problems come from someone having a vision and the other people not getting it, but then we work towards an outcome that we would never have gotten if the one person would have given up. So Pat had met a female NASCAR driver and he's like, we need to be on a NASCAR. And I was like, what the fuck are you even talking about? He's like, we need to put I just have this feeling, we just put it there. I know if we pay the money and we sponsor the driver, and if we get there, we'll make good connections. I'm like, yeah, but I don't know. I came from a background of doing sports sponsorships, and I was like, I don't like logos on cars. They don't do anything. I've had to try to justify through impressions and all these things that somehow some brand's logo on a car that you're going to see on TV is going to benefit. So we were just hashing it out. And in fairness to him, he said, just join the call with the driver. And I was tired of sports sponsorships. I'd been all over Europe doing them. And I remember before the call, I was so frustrated, I just started drawing the car. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, fuck, it's not the logo. It's actually not the logo, but we need to be on the car. And I'm like, the AI needs to be on the car. And he's like, and we get on the call and the driver Amber's there, and I go, okay. And I just met her, and I'm like, I already know what's going on here. I go, but here's what we're gonna do. Amber, we're gonna be the first sports sponsorship that does not put our logo on a car anywhere. And I remember you guys looking at me going, what are you talking about? I said, Amber, you are gonna be the AI. We're gonna build Ask Amber, and that is going to be all over your car because we believe in product and building. So we designed the entire car with AskAmber.io. We launched, in 2 weeks, a full race car personality on a car. Yeah. By the way, we're going to NASCAR and people are gonna see this, and we're building it you wanna know how we our process? Part of our process came from, we had to learn how to build shit real quick because we put ourselves into an insane situation. And we didn't put our logo on the car. We show up.
Well, hold on.
Yeah.
Can I just add? So it's not just a personality, okay? There was a co-sponsor who was an RV parts manufacturer who had 1,800 SKUs, and they wanted to be part of it too. So in 2 weeks, because it was super tight, we built a personality that you could ask him or her about her race and career and everything, or you could say, I need a 6.5 foot fender skirt, what do you have? And it would be able to query the product catalog and bring you and show you the picture and give you the price and show you the how to install video, etc. It was insane. And I'll let you get to the NASCAR part, but the other thing is this is built on trust. I gambled 30% of available cash on the sponsorship, which is insane. I made the money back in 30 days, but you have to trust yourself and you have to believe what you're going to do. But like, if you think that was an easy decision, that we just were like, oh yeah, this is a no-brainer. Like, I could have bankrupted the company. Like, that easily could have been the outcome.
But we do have a principle here. We'll hash it out and argue. Once we came up with the idea, we were all in and we were on all the same team.
Yeah.
We
100%.
gamble money. We are not doubting. We are going and we are executing. And I don't want to hear anything.
Yeah.
I'm not bringing anything. And if it fails, this is a team decision. I don't care who came up with the idea. We failed together. Race day showed up and our driver did something that, by the way, other than winning the race, was the greatest thing to happen to us.
I think it might have been better than.
But was the scariest thing ever. You want to talk about battle testing your technology?
Yeah.
Amber's racing, and in that race, and he went viral, is a race car driver called Cletus McFarland.
Yeah, he's a YouTuber turned race car driver.
Millions and millions of YouTube fans. During the race, by the way, we are live update. We're pipelining into our AI live updates on Amber's placement, the weather, so that fans can come and talk to Amber. So
Yeah,
people are literally chatting with Amber.
Yeah, because there was a rain delay for qualifications, and people were asking, what does that mean? We're literally updating like from the pit box.
And Amber and Cletus get in. They collide, and they're both out of the race. And if you want to know how to manage an AI to deal with the craziest scenario, I want you to think about Cletus McFarland and his fans from the southern United States coming to that AI and talking to it and hurling everything that they could hurl at our AI. When people talk about what we've done to battle test AI, I go, if we can handle literally the craziest part of the United States and what they say, and they went right at it and it held its own, that was one of our biggest challenges. It brought our team together and it was crazy. I'll kind of backtrack. This is great, but before the race happened, the key sponsors come around and they take a look and the number one sponsor of the entire race, we won't say names or anything like that, shows up, goes up to Amber and said, who's sponsoring this car? And she's like, well, it's this team. And he goes, but I don't see the logo there. And they go, well, they decided not to put the logo on the car. And he goes, this guy, everyone wants to talk to him about business.
This guy runs a $30 billion company.
And he said, I want to meet those guys right now.
Financing is always essential to businesses, right? So government-backed financing has helped us a lot along the way in grants and things like that. It's really expensive to start a business. We've had to do some really, like, we call it almost like credit card loan type financing, and that's really, really tough to carry, right? So any way that the government can support reasonable interest rate loans for businesses to develop and get through those, get to profitability, to get the equipment and even just the expertise. We've been really lucky along the way with grants and government programs and stuff. So I think that's great, and more of those certainly help a lot.
Communities like Founders Beta are doing a great job of getting the word out. But there are some tremendous opportunities, whether it comes to Canadian government grants. I think that the government does a really good job supporting startups. Again, if you know where to look for these opportunities, whether it's through, if you're fortunate enough to qualify for things like IRAP, the Industrial Research Assistance Program, which does a great job of spurring Canadian innovation. SHRED, another great Canadian government grant that you can receive against the funds and resources you spent towards developing new and innovative products. There's CanX for expanding into different international markets in the UX, for example. There's a ton of great stuff that's out there. You kind of have to know where to look. There isn't as vocal communication around those things, I was fortunate to have a network of other founders I've hooked up with who were able to educate me on these things, but they're not in your face, they're not front and center. So I think that there's a lot of good out there. I think on the flip side of it, I think that it has to be, I share from my own trials and tribulations of our model was a little different. And because it was different, it didn't fit the mold of a lot of traditional lending avenues, which was infuriating, quite frankly, because I would argue that if you looked at the health of our business, I not argue, it's a fact. You take a look at how successful we were in an outcome. When organizations saw what we were doing, they were blown away with how we were able to create the outcome that we did. But because it didn't look traditional, traditional institutions would say, we don't know what to do.
So there was a whole bunch of different government programs that were available. The Canadian Emergency Business Account. So they gave you a loan with a grant portion if you repaid it. There was a wage subsidy. So if your sales were down by a certain percentage, you could get a subsidy on your wages. And then there were other different programs with larger loans like the Regional Recovery Relief Fund, which we're still paying back today. So a lot of that was in the form of a loan, but we took all that funding and put it into what we call Crafty Ramen Market, which is our business that does manufacturing and CPG products.
There could be more innovation in Canada. And I'm very, very hopeful that with tremendous communities that are emerging, like Founders Beta, who are sharing stories and creating more exposure and providing more of a support network. Selfish plug. I mean, I leaned on the Founders Beta community, which was in its super early days when we were at Contractor Compliance, and it provided me a lot of insights into things that I can learn, funding that we can receive, and by funding I really mean grants because we bootstrap, right? But there needs to be more noise, there needs to be more excitement, there needs to be more risk taking, and what I hope to bring to the Canadian, economy, tech ecosystem is just more innovation. There are some brilliant people here who can do some really exciting things, but there needs to be more of a drive to do it, if you know what I mean. And that's not a knock on anyone. Like, I totally get where, I don't want to come off as negative, but there needs to be more horsepower behind innovation. There needs to be more risk taking, but that also needs to be broadcasted more. It needs to be touted more. It needs to be supported more, both through stories and through, institutional investors, through, banking, opportunities for start. You wouldn't believe how hard it was for us to get loans, right? We were a successful, man. I remember trying to get a loan from Canadian banks. Our model was a little bit different in that we didn't have receivables, but something as ridiculous as we're profitable, we're cash flow positive, we're making, $2, $3, $4 million a year in recurring revenue and growing by 50%. And banks would say, well, because you don't have any receivables, we don't know what the fuck to give you as a loan, so you just don't qualify. It's like, really? Like that simple little nuance that doesn't fit into your fold. I mean, there were banks out of the US left, right, and center saying, well, what do you want? So there has to be more innovation. And it's there. It's just not as real as it needs to be.
Canada is a great place.
Yeah, 100%.
We are rich in history. We are rich in resources, and we are rich in ambition. We've met a ton of Canadian entrepreneurs who want to go for things. But the reality at the end of the day is, in order to achieve that, we need to celebrate the irrational. We need to dream about the things that we can achieve, and we need to go after it. And we need our government and our identity to reinforce that. The challenge we have in our society right now is that we are prioritizing the wrong things. We are prioritizing you're spending more in government things or doing things, and the reality is that the entrepreneur is not prized and not recognized in this country and not supported like the way it is in America. First thing they need to do is procurement in the United States and Canada needs to be a strategic initiative to support and enable Canadian companies to grow. The best way to get Canadian companies to grow here is to have a market that exists to buy their products tomorrow.
Correct.
If you have government that is ready to buy your product, win, lose, it should be this. We will buy it. We will try it. If it fails, so what? Because the strategic imperative is to get you a runway to build your company in Canada.
And learn.
Then who cares whether the thing worked or not? The goal was not that. The goal was to give people a market out of the gate. And if Canadian companies do that, and government incentivizes Canadian companies to also invest in bleeding edge things, then we will have a market and it gives us an advantage. And guess who does that? South Korea does that. The United States does that. China does that. And in Canada, we do not support that. Give us a domestic market to sell to, incentivize it, and that will be a platform for growth.
Well, and the perfect example is we've been really fortunate. We've had support from the government on R&D expenses and things. However, our first government client was US. Like, think about that, right? So Canada helped the innovation, but then we had to go make our money on that innovation in another country. So we love Canada. We're not against it. We think there's great opportunities.
Reason why we're still here.
Yeah, there's a reason why we haven't moved yet. But at the end of the day, I think it's an ego problem, and I think it's a procurement problem, and I think you got to solve both of them, quite frankly.
Walking away from job security, a great salary, and good benefits, and all that stuff to take a huge gamble like this was the direct result of losing my parents. And making sure that they did everything in their life. Yeah. I'm an only child. It was all about me. And they did everything they possibly could to put me in a position to be successful and have a better life. For me, it's about paying them back, their memory back, but also it wasn't for me. Like, it's for my kids and my kids' kids and my kids' kids' kids. So for me, it's two things. It's in my home office above my desk, where no one could really see on a Zoom call, but I had 2 pictures of my parents from the funeral above my desk every fucking day. So if it ever got hard, if it ever got tiring, if it ever became overwhelming, it's really hard to fucking close that laptop and not keep the oil burning when you have that visual. What's different now? The obvious answer is we exited successfully. So for me, my family, everyone in the business, quite frankly, who all benefited financially from our exit, every single person down to the frontline customer service reps. We all have more financial security. It's nice to know that there's less of a worry about putting food on the table for your family. And that is huge, and quite frankly, a big part of why we bootstrapped the thing, because we wanted to make sure that all the effort we were putting into this as founders, but also to the people that came along the journey, is that there was a little nugget at the end of the rainbow.
What's next for Gambit is we're gonna keep doing things that no one expects us to do, because the second that somebody comes up and says, yeah, I could have seen you guys doing that, that's failure to us, at least to me. But I think the big thing is I want to keep making really great money and then reinvesting that in social programs that help people have access to support and services that they don't have access to. Because we fundamentally believe it's okay to make money and to do good. And you can do both of those. And sometimes the one that makes money doesn't do as good, but then you reinvest it and you do it. Because Ask Ellen has been a huge success for us. It's been free. We've now monetized it with an insurance company. We're the proof point that you can actually do good and make money.
My parents are actually refugees to Canada from Uganda. So they got kicked out of Uganda when they were 13 years old and weren't allowed to take anything with them. Luckily, they landed here in Canada. And after working for a long time in low-wage jobs, they saved enough money to buy a restaurant downtown Guelph. So they used to own a restaurant down here called the Diana Downtown. And I grew up in a full-service restaurant. I was probably doing dishes at 10 years old when I was too young to be allowed working. So the hospitality and the industry was in my blood from day one. When I was at university, I had an event management business with some friends. So that was my first real foray into entrepreneurship on my own. And that's just another version of hospitality. We're hosting people, marketing events, fashion shows, all kinds of stuff. And then when I left university, I partnered up with my dad, who had 2 Harvey's franchises at the time. And I helped grow us to 4 before we met Jared and Miki, and now we have 6 locations today. And I started to get a little bit bored in the franchise world. I wanted to try something different. And naturally, I met Jared and Miki not too far after getting that itch. And it was my first time investing in something that wasn't created by us or we had full control over. So it was really exciting, and it was really scary at the same time. And I always say if something excites you and scares you at the same time, it means you should do it.